Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all here today. My name is Veda, and I'm a product manager at Devbox. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm thrilled to introduce Sebastian, a developer from the VS team. He's here to share his journey and true story about how he's using Devbox to streamline his workflows and boost productivity. Before we dive deeper, let's briefly discuss what Devbox actually is. Devbox is a cloud based development environment that provides developers with a self service access to task based, ready to code workstations that are optimized and secure and hosted on the cloud. It allows you to spin up a fully configured dev environment tailored to your specific needs, whether you're working on a single project or juggling multiple tasks. Currently, about half of our engaged users are leveraging multiple dev boxes to minimize context switching and enhance productivity. We believe highlighting these benefits today will encourage everyone to take full advantage of this powerful tool. In today's casual chat on how to maximize your productivity with DevBox, we'll be discussing task-based development with multiple dev boxes, some Visual Studio and DevBox tips and tricks, and share some of the upcoming DevBox and Visual Studio features. So without any further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Sebastian, where he'll talk about task-based development with multiple dev boxes.
Hi, thank you, Veda. Yes, I'm Sebastian. I'm excited to be here today to discuss kind of my workflow with Visual Studio and Devbox. I mostly work on the Visual Studio version control team, so anything to do with Git within Visual Studio, anything from bugs to features to updates to Git itself within VS. It's definitely a challenging but rewarding role, and I'm excited to kind of discuss how we utilize multiple dev boxes in a developer's workflow today.
Oh, yeah, that we are excited to have you here. So, Sebastian, tell us how you first discovered Devbox.
Yes. So before I go into like how exactly I discovered Devbox, I feel like it would be good to know kind of like my thought process behind my workflow and how I cultivated that. And I think that started like from a very early age. Specifically, when I was a kid, my mom used to say that I used to play a lot with Legos, and I used to sort them, the pieces, based on colors or shapes or where they belonged. And I remember my mom used to tell a story where she'd walk into the room right before running an errand, and she'd say something along the lines like, "Hey, can you pack everything up? We have to go. We'll be back in 2 hours, and then you can continue playing." This made no sense to me, Beta. I don't know but it didn't make any sense. I was like, why would I put things away if I'm going to come back to it and utilize it?
Yeah, I could totally see that. Like anytime I tell my kid to pack his Legos and leave the room, he's like, "Why? Why do we need to do that?" So
I want things to be exactly where they used to be, right? And I kind of do this in my adult life in my apartment, right? At the end of the day, I usually do a cleanup, and sometimes I have some drawers which are chaotically organized, how I like to say, where there's a bunch of things there, but they're exactly where they need to be. And I know, like, at the end of the day, or when I need to go get them, I know where they are. And so this is kind of similar to my workflow today. When I'm developing or just in my day-to-day, at the end of the day, I like to clean up my entire environment by closing all of the local applications off.
So, Sebastian, tell me, why do you do that? Like, why do you close your applications at the end of the day?
The reason I do that, I think, is mostly like peace of mind. So that, at the end of the day, I usually create a to-do list of what I need to do the next day. And I think coming into the day with a fresh, open mind, right, now with a bunch of tabs open and a bunch of applications, all I need to focus is on my to-do list and the applications that I'll need to actually utilize for those first tasks during the day. So that's typically
that makes sense.
Why I do that. But it's hard to do that as a developer, because as a developer, sometimes you could be debugging, right, a bug that you can't reproduce, and you have a breakpoint on line 9, and the last thing you want to do is context switch somewhere else, right, and switch your environment. Yep. And this happened to me once during stand-up. I had to go into stand-up, and I was right before stand-up, I was debugging a bug that was hard to reproduce. And we got the announcement, like in stand-up, that we had to go update Git within Visual Studio. And so I was like, wait a second, I don't I don't want to leave the environment that I'm in, right? In my Visual Studio with the breakpoints that I have, because it's a hard bug to reproduce. The last thing I want to do is go somewhere else, right? Or spin up a different environment to update Git. So that's when the light bulb kind of shined in my brain. I was like, oh, wait a second. I can use Devbox and create a new one by creating it in the portal and then utilizing to update Git.
Nice. Sebastian, how frequent are these updates?
Yeah, the Git updates really happen kind of, I don't want to say, maybe sporadically would be the word, where sometimes we're updating them frequently if there's new Git updates. Sometimes it could be 1 to 3 months before we update them, right? If there's not any new features or anything like that. So yeah, it happens on a rolling basis. Sometimes it's more frequent than others, and sometimes it's quieter. But definitely having, a Devbox dedicated for that is a powerful tool.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing your story. I love to hear about your, childhood memories. So, switching gears a bit, I want to take a moment to show everyone like Devbox in action, and I also want to show how easy it is to set up and manage the Dev environment. So, Sebastian, why don't you take it away?
100%. So, as you can see on my screen right here, I have the Windows app. And within this window app, I have multiple different Devboxes. For example, talking about that bug that was very hard to reproduce, I actually ended up creating just a Devbox for that right over here.
Nice.
And then when sometimes we need to update and service Visual Studio 2017 or VS 15.9, because the configurations are so different, and 2017 was a long time ago, I just have a Devbox right there, right? Because we all have to maintain code and service some older products. So I have that right over there. Nice. But let me go ahead and jump into the demo today to kind of give you a brief overview of the workflow that I would have. All righty. Awesome. So I've jumped over here to my very first Devbox. And within this Devbox, I'm kind of simulating like I need to update an API, right? So I'm using the OctoKit GraphQL open source repository from GitHub, which gives some APIs to C#. And you can see I have a lot of changes, which sometimes is the case when you're updating Git for VS. So I've jumped into this repository here, which is an OctoKit GraphQL repository, an open source repository from GitHub for some C# APIs. And as you can see here, I have a lot of changes. But it's kind of simulating like I'm updating something, right? That might be maybe risky, maybe not. But the thing I want to do within this Devbox is go ahead and run some test. So I'll go ahead and do something that a lot of developers do, which is run a test.
How often are you running these tests, Sebastian?
Yeah, so when it comes to like updating Git within VS, it's every time we do the updates. But also with building features or anything like that, we're always adding new unit tests, but also just running them whenever we're making any changes. And when it comes to updating Git within Visual Studio, the test can take anywhere less than 5 minutes, sometimes a little more, depending on the machine. But the thing that I don't want to do is just kind of sit around now, right? Because I'm updating these tests. So I want to go ahead and focus on another task. So let me go ahead and go to my other Devbox.
Nice. I noticed that you have a different coloring scheme for your other Devbox. So can you talk us through that?
Yes. Good eye, Veda. So when you have multiple almost like free, like not free environments, but when you have multiple Devboxes, right, which enable you to do different tasks at the same time or in parallel, it can get a little tricky and confusing, right? But you can personalize these Devboxes to kind of give you a reminder of the task that you have at hand. For example, on this one, my background, I kind of just called it task 2, Devbox 2, to kind of exaggerate what I'm doing for the demo. But things that you could do to customize are like customize the mouse that you have, or what I did here is this taskbar is yellow. The other one was purple.
Nice.
This gives me good reminders, right, on where am I right now, and like this is a different machine now, and so it makes it a little easier for sure. Alrighty, jumping into the following program to give a little bit overview of the flow. Now I'm in another open source GitHub repository, the Aspire repo.
Okay. So I noticed that you use two Devboxes for
Yep.
similar open source repos, right? Any reason for that?
Yes, the main reason is because the setup for the repositories is a bit different. Now, for the demo purposes, it's a little small, the differences, but it can be large differences when working on your day-to-day flow, right? But for example, on that very first Devbox beta, what I had was pretty much just a GitHub repository with C#, .NET framework. I think it was around 3.5, right? Now,
Okay.
with the Aspire open source repo, it's a little bit different. So the dependencies for the Aspire repo, I think, constitute of having Docker, Node.js, and I believe the .NET framework 8.0, right? So you have a higher version now, and you have some different tools that maybe I don't need on the other machine, right? So I don't want to pollute my environment. So I've gone ahead and kind of boxed it into its own place because I'll be doing a lot of my personal workflow on this specific Devbox. So for example, on this repository here for Aspire, I have my own weather app of the different cities that I've lived. So let me just go ahead and make a change, and just to demonstrate the application today, after I've added New York, actually I think I need to add New York City to pick it up. So let me run that really quick. Caught the bug before I actually pushed to prod, which is good.
Nice.
And once this boots up the Edge browser, yep, awesome. We have our Aspire dashboard. And then if I go to local host over here, you'll be able to see Sebastian's weather app. These are just the different cities that I've lived in, except New York. I just kind of added that for the demo, but there's broken clouds everywhere. Look at that. But Seattle is the coldest today at 49 degrees.
Of course,
anyways, I've gone ahead and made that change, and now I'm ready to commit that change in Visual Studio. Alrighty, I'll verify it. You have New York City there.
So Sebastian, I noticed that you switched to Visual Studio now. Is there any tips that you can share on how to stay focused within Visual Studio?
Yes. So a lot of the topics today, right, are about context switching, right? And how can we make the developer's workflow a little easier by keeping them focused in their own task? So we can do that with multiple Devboxes as we're demonstrating, right? But we can also do that if you're in the IDE Visual Studio itself. So one of the great things to do in the IDE is, instead of going into the Git command line to go ahead and commit my changes, what I can do is actually do that all within the IDE in Git changes window. So actually, to just demonstrate how to get there, we go to the view in the top left, go to Git repository. Oh, not wrong one. Go to Git changes, and you see over here all of your changes that you've made and that you're ready to commit. The beauty of also being in the IDE is that you have some extra features on top of just being maybe in a command line. So on this one, for example, we can generate a commit message with Copilot, and you utilize some of the AI features that Visual Studio has sprinkled. So I'll go ahead and generate a commit message with Copilot, and let's see what it thinks about my change today.
That is super cool.
Yeah, so as you can see, it says add New York City to the list of cities. I'll accept that change, and I'll go ahead and commit it. So this is just one way to stay in the IDE, not have to go to a command line. Another way, and another thing that we can do, similar in the realm of Git, is the ability to review pull requests within the IDE itself, right? So instead of going to a web browser, you could maybe have a Devbox dedicated to reviewing your team's pull requests within Visual Studio IDE. And that gives you the power to go ahead and be able to navigate code that maybe would be a little harder to navigate within the web browser. So back in that Git changes window, you have that PR button in the top right. And in the branch that I'm in, there's a pull request in the client. So I'm going to go ahead and select show comments and files. And as you can see, I missed a few white spaces, so there's some comments about that. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly
That's super neat. Just all within the IDE.
Exactly. Anytime that I can go ahead and stay within the IDE, focus on the task at hand, it'll just really boost that productivity. So I'll go ahead and commit that. That's ready to go. Another thing that we can do in the IDE, again, in that pull request side of things, is the ability to create pull request. Alrighty, another great thing about being within Visual Studio and helping with that context switching, right, instead of going in the browser, is that if you're in a branch that you're ready to go ahead and create a pull request for, after pushing your changes, you'll see that a notification comes up saying successfully pushed to the origin branch. So you can either create in Visual Studio or you can go ahead and create in the browser. But again, we're trying to minimize that context switching. So what we can do is we can create in Visual Studio.
I love that.
Yeah, right. Again, it has a very similar feel to what the web browser would have, but you have code navigation and then you have all your changes very in a familiar state within the IDE. And here, once you add your title and you have a generated pull request description based if you have some default templates in GitHub or Azure DevOps, you'll be able to see your changes, any issues or commits that you have, and then you can add some reviewers there as well. And then you can either create as a draft, however you'd like. I'll go ahead and create that. And that has successfully created the pull request in the web browser now.
Wow, that is so cool.
Review that, exactly. I mean, all that workflow of making some changes, creating pull requests, reviewing pull requests. Now you no longer need to go to the web browser and potentially have a bunch of tabs and try to figure out the code changes and the file navigation. You can do that all within the IDE. So again, coming back to your question, Veda, context switching is something that we're trying to prevent developers from doing heavily, right? As it is time consuming. So having multiple dev boxes for reviewing pull requests or for task is a great way to stay focused in the task at hand.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. Could you also let us know when these features are landing to our users so we can try it out?
Great question. So right now, the create pull request, review pull request, and the generated commit message, which you can also generate description messages in your pull request as well. That is all in general availability and preview in Visual Studio 2022.
Awesome. So it's out right now for everyone to try.
Yes.
Amazing. That's super cool. Thank you again for sharing these, Sebastian. I'm also excited to share some additional optimizations for Visual Studio on the Devbox that we recently released in the latest version of VS. We are actively collaborating with the Visual Studio editor team to improve the editor performance for Devbox. So we recently introduced the structures guideline optimization, and it's available for folks to try out. So if you encounter any latency issues on VS on a Devbox on the editor, please let us know and share your feedback. It's very important for us. So Sebastian, it sounds like Devbox has really helped streamline your workflow, right? However, I'm curious, did you encounter any challenges while setting up your Devboxes? And could you share some of the feedback?
Yeah, when it comes to any issues on Devbox, I think with any new project, whether it be a repository or new tools for development, I think it can always be a little tricky, right? Reading documentation, you might miss a step or something like that. And one of the things that I couldn't fully figure out in the beginning when setting up my Devbox was, does it support multiple monitors?
Oh, yeah. We get this question all the time, Sebastian. So first of all, I'm thrilled to see you use the Windows app. That's what you use for your demo. So this will be our recommended tool for connecting to your Devbox. And now I can show you a few tips and tricks on how to improve your Devbox experience. And I'll start with the Windows app. So sharing my screen to the Windows app. So you'll see that the Windows app has some excellent features, such as ability to pin to taskbar. So you can pin your Devbox to your taskbar, and then you can connect to your Devbox at any given time at a single click. So that's very neat. We also have, remove from, I already pinned my Devbox to a task view here. So you can see that there is also an add to task view option here, which will let you switch between your local machine and your Devbox seamlessly. This is what you were asking, Sebastian. Does Devbox support Windows multiple monitors? Yes, we do. So if you see here, this is the this is the default settings. If you turn off the toggle, you can see we support single display, or you can select multiple displays. Right now I have two monitors, so you'll see the two display, and then you can choose the configurations whichever way you want it to be, and set it up.
That's awesome, Ada. I think anytime that we have similar UI as we have there for multi-monitor, right? Similar to that Windows settings, right, where you can select and configure your display settings. That's great, and hopefully a lot of people will be able to easily find those settings so that they can set up that multi-monitor capability.
Yep, exactly. And people also can use the developer portal to set up their multi-monitor when they're creating the Devbox itself, so that it's set and they can use it whenever they access their Devbox.
That's great. Beta, I've also run into sometimes some connectivity issues, specifically whether it be connecting right in the morning, or one time I'll be working in a Devbox and it disconnects out of nowhere. Do you have any tips or tricks to figure out and troubleshoot those issues that you run into?
Oh yeah, definitely, Sebastian. This is something I'm super passionate about, and always making sure our developers get a seamless and perfect network connection. So happy to walk you through some of the connectivity related improvements that we're working on the team. So let me share my screen once again. This time I'll show you all the developer portal. You may all be familiar with this. This is the portal where you create a new Devbox, and then once you're done with it, you can also delete your Devbox from here. Over here, I want to show you a couple of features apart from create that we have, and that we are constantly working on and improving. And one of it is the troubleshoot and repair feature, where if our customers encounter any issues, this is the first thing we would recommend them, like come open to your dev portal and then try the troubleshoot and repair feature, where we'll run through a script and then detect and repair any issues that we think can be fixed. Moreover, we have also integrated the system into an automated system, where it'll run in the background, and if we detect any issues, we'll try and optimize and fix it for you. For example, if we detect any problems with your network settings, we'll attempt to do a reset and try and fix your Devbox automatically. Additionally, we are also collaborating with the Azure Virtual Desktop team to implement several optimizations to ensure a reliable network connection. So these improvements are designed to enhance the overall connectivity experience, to make it easier to stay connected and be more productive.
No, these are great, Beta, because honestly, anytime that you can just stay focused on your task, right, and not have to worry about what's going on in the background, right, with your connection, and if it does disconnect, right, and tries to reconnect, these are just powerful capabilities for developers. Now, Beta, I do also see there that you have a little preview feature called Hibernation or Hibernate.
Yep.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yep, for sure. Like that's you have a good eye, Sebastian. That's a great observation. So one of the new features that we have in preview in Devbox is hibernation. So we're trying this out to help control costs for Devboxes when they're not in use. So basically, a hibernating Devbox will save its current state and will not accrue any additional charges. So it's making it ideal for developers who are not working on that Devbox currently, or even switching between multiple Devboxes doing different tasks, right? So they can hibernate it, and then when they're ready to continue, they can wake up their Devbox and pick up right where they left off.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that goes back to the previous point that we made, right? With multiple dev boxes for different tasks. One of the tasks that I do, right, is updating Git within Visual Studio. And like I said, that happens on a rolling basis. So I might not utilize that dev box for 2 or 3 months, or maybe in a few weeks, right? And so having it being able to hibernate and not incur any cost, that's a great benefit to utilize more dev boxes.
Yep, definitely.
Now, before we wrap up, Veda, I would love to hear some of the exciting upcoming features in the roadmap for Devbox. I know we've talked about tips and tricks. I know we've talked about multiple Devboxes, but in the future, what is there to get excited about, for developers?
Absolutely. So one of the most anticipated features that we have coming up soon is the snapshot and restore functionality for Devbox. So this will allow developers to take a snapshot of their Devbox environments at any point in time. And then if something goes wrong, or if you want to experiment with new configurations, you're a dev, you try to play with the box, and and then something goes wrong, you can always restore your dev box to the previous save state. So this feature will enhance flexibility and reduce the risk of losing important work. So I'm going to quickly share a video that I put together for this demo, which will walk us through the snapshot process. So yep. So this is on the dev portal. You'll see that we have added a take snapshot option. So you press the button, and then you're allowed to take a manual snapshot. You choose to take the snapshot. We'll take the snapshot for you quickly, and then your snapshot is now ready. So now you want to go and say, okay, you want to restore this dev box. So you can go back to the restore point, and you'll see that there is a manual snapshot and also a couple of automated snapshots that we have taken for you. You can choose to either do the manual snapshot or the automated snapshot. Here I'll choose the manual snapshot option, and then I want to say restore. And we'll restore the dev box for you in the background. And once the restore is done, we'll update the menu here and also send you an email that your dev box is restored and ready to go. So you can continue playing with your experiments.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly useful. I mean, it must provide a lot of peace of mind for developers, right? If you mess up like the dev box, or if you mess up your environment that you're in and you kind of want to go back to a state that you know is safe and ready to go, I mean, that's a fantastic functionality, and I'm excited to try that
Definitely. Out. Yep. So yeah, we are super excited about this one coming up soon as well. Sebastian, do you have any final thoughts as we are wrapping up, and advice for other developers who are thinking of making the switch over to Devbox?
Yeah, I think my main tip would be to to try and learn new things, right? I think with Devbox, right, there are a lot of functionalities that you can try, but go ahead and give Devbox or multiple Devboxes a try. When you find that have to have different tasks that have completely different workflows, I think integrating Devbox together for those tasks separately will truly enhance your workflow, and it'll hopefully optimize your time by no longer having to context switch so much. So that the main tip I would have is just to try it out, see what works for you, whether it's one Devbox, two Devboxes, or more, and give us any feedback in the end.
Yep. Definitely, your feedback is very important to us. So please share any feedback that you might have. So thank you, Sebastian. This conversation was incredibly insightful. I'm certain that me and the audience has gained a lot of knowledge from you sharing your experience. And I'm also excited about these new features on VS and Devbox, making our workflows more efficient and also enhancing productivity. So thank you all for joining us today. We hope you found this session super helpful and informative. To learn more about Devbox, you can visit aka.ms/devbox/resources. And also don't miss our Ignite breakout session next week for more announcement. Have a great day and happy coding.
Bye.